I'm your host, Sabrina Salvati. I'm your host, Sabrina Salvati.
Hello, hello. Happy Sunday evening. Welcome, everyone. Welcome to the Ethnic Women's Liberation Panel. I'm your host, Sabrina Salvati, and I want to give a big shout out to everyone on the panel. Some people may be new. It may be their first time seeing this panel, so I want everyone to have a chance to go around and introduce themselves. So I'll just go in order. So, Kim.
Hey everybody, happy Sunday to you. My name is Kim Brown. I'm the host of the show Burn It Down with Kim Brown, where we discuss politics and cultural events, social events, from a very left perspective, with a little dash of comedy while we discuss our politics and very sobering issues. So hello, welcome everybody, and I'm excited to be back here on the panel, Sabby. Thank you for having me.
Awesome. Athene?
Hello, my name is Yvonne. I am a co-organizer with Freedom Fighters DC. I'm a part of a Black collective called Urban Temple. And, you know, I like to be Black and complain. It's very, very fun. So I can't wait to do that today.
Josana?
I'd like to play a game to hint the theme for tonight. My name is Josana. I am a Black Indigenous woman from South America, Brazil. And I am an immigrant in the United States. Just gonna leave it right there.
Awesome. And Keisha and Courtney?
Hello. We're the Bank Sisters. We are just young-ish, childless,
sisters, Renaissance women, as some may say. We talk about kind of everything from composting to Kamala Harris, just whatever the day brings. Okay, what do we want to complain about? I agree with Athene.
Yeah, exactly.
But yeah, just kind of bringing that perspective of being in that sandwich generation,
working class. Those are our issues, I guess.
Awesome. Zeneb isn't feeling too well tonight. You guys know it's going around. I can't say the word on here. Sorry, that's YouTube's issue. And Margaret actually has another engagement. Delilah, I think, just popped in. Welcome.
Hi. Sorry I'm late.
Oh, no worries. We just did introductions. You want to introduce yourself?
Sure. Yeah, my name's Delilah Barrios. I'm from Texas. I'm running for governor's Green Party candidate down here. Yeah, I met you through Rome and the rest of the Revolutionary Blackout Network folks, so I was really excited to be invited here to join on this panel discussions.
Awesome. Yeah, I think Rome, I think everybody knows Rome in some way or another.
Yeah.
I just want to let Kim know really quick. Kim, I think your video's frozen. Like, we can hear you, but just letting you know you're frozen, I think.
Tell you what, I might log off and log back on. So
okay.
I see y'all in a second.
Okay. Okay, so tonight we are talking about intersectionality and what that means and what that is like for us, because we are people that sit at those intersections. But first, I want to explain what intersectionality actually means. And I have a video here from Professor Kimberly Crenshaw. She is actually the one who coined the term intersectionality. So I want to play that for just a second.
intersectionality is just a metaphor for understanding the ways that multiple forms of inequality or disadvantage sometimes compound themselves, and they create obstacles that often are not understood within conventional ways of thinking about anti-racism or feminism or whatever social justice advocacy structures we have. Intersectionality isn't so much a grand theory, it's a prism for understanding certain kinds of problems. African American girls are 6 times more likely to be suspended than white girls. That's probably a race and a gender problem. It's not just a race problem, it's not just a gender problem. So I encourage people to think about how the convergence of race stereotypes or gender stereotypes might actually play out in the classroom, between teachers and students, between students and other students, between students and administrators, and commit themselves to understanding that as a way of intervening and providing equal educational opportunity for all students, regardless of their identities. Identity isn't simply a self-contained unit. It is a relationship between people in history, people in communities, people in institutions. So schools do a good job when they understand that and when they commit themselves to curricular development, to opportunities in the school for all students to understand the histories that have brought us to this particular moment. You can't change outcomes without understanding how they've come about. So independent schools can take the lead on that to be responsive to their student populations and to the communities out of which the students come.
Okay, so that is Professor Kimberly Crenshaw. She also talks a lot about critical race theory. So if you're not familiar with that, you should definitely check out some of her work. She teaches at Columbia University. But what does she mean by intersectionality? I want to show you an image of what that actually looks like in practice. So this refers to marginalized groups that have multiple social identities. So I have a picture here. Make sure I add Kim back in. I'm going to share my screen because I want to show you exactly like what that looks like in practice. So this is a social identity wheel. There's several different types. If you Google them, you'll see different versions. This is actually the one that is the closest to what Kimberly Crenshaw is talking about. If you'll notice in the center, you see the word me. And these are different identities that you can have. So I'm going to start at the top. There's race, there's ethnicity, socioeconomic class, gender, sexual orientation, age, national origin, first language, physical, emotional, and developmental ability, and religious or spiritual affiliation. Now, in reference to intersectionality, what this means is that if you're a part of a marginalized group and you have these multiple social identities, that means that you sit at these intersections. So, for example, I'm a Black woman. I can be discriminated against because I'm female. I can be discriminated against because I'm Black, but I can also be discriminated against because I'm a Black female. And that's important for people to understand. And I want to go ahead and pop out here. And I want to open this up to the panel. When we talk about intersectionality, what are some of the experiences that you may have had in your own lives with intersectionality? I'll go ahead and start in order. So I'll go with the Finney.
Yeah, I've been reading the chat and, I'm gonna just keep it a whole stack. Like I feel like a lot of the reason why, I backed away from, the public is because I feel like a lot of my opinions are extremely unpopular, but let me say it like this. I cannot separate my identities. I cannot just be Black. I cannot just be a woman. I cannot just be a lesbian. I am a Black queer woman at all times. So even through my organizing and my advocacy, my organizing is a reflection of who I am, right? So when I see people in the chat saying, oh, like, why can't we all just transcend race and, just all come together and fight the oppressors? Cool. You know what I'm saying? But that's the problem when people don't understand intersectionality. Because you are telling me that I have to, yet again, concede a part of my identity in order to be in community with you. And that ain't it. Period. Like, I can stand in solidarity with you, but that me standing in solidarity with working class white people, let's be very clear, is like minimum wage increases. That's like universal health care. You know what I'm saying? Like, those things are standing in solidarity with white people. To stand in solidarity with me, there are a lot of things that we needed to fight for that white people ain't going to be affected by. Period. Y'all not going to benefit from it. Y'all not going to get a crumb of it. It's not for you. You see what I'm saying? We're going to girl boss gatekeep that. You feel what I'm saying? So, like, if I'm going to be a Black queer woman, I'm always going to be a Black queer woman. I'm always going to organize for all parts of my identity, for all parts of myself and all of my different intersections. And I would really appreciate it if people would do a better job at understanding what they're saying when they say it. Because when you tell me that I should just get over it and, like, we should all just pull ourselves up and organize against the 1%, we should do that. But we should also organize reparations, which white people are not going to benefit from. We should also organize for federal legislation where Black people will not be discriminated against because of their hair, because of the way they talk, because of their names on job applications. Like, that's what I mean. That's what I mean by it's different. So, people want to call it like oppression in Olympics. It has nothing to do with that. It has everything to do with the fact that true justice for me looks different than true justice for you, because our identities, our lives are different. Period.
Courtney and Keisha?
I mean, it's like a word from Afeni. I mean, the conceding, I think that's the biggest point, like something that I can connect with so well is it's oftentimes that we are asked to concede parts of ourselves for other people's comfort. And I feel like a lot of times as a woman, you're asked to do that, to just, suppress yourself or whatever that is. And I mean, I'm like Afeni. I'm really like, whatever, this is what the fuck I need. I'm going to talk about that. Because it's crazy. Even starting a YouTube channel like we have, you're like, oh, we supposed to talk about Black stuff? It's like, well, what else would we talk about? It just naturally comes up because that affects our lives. And then you have to think, oh, we're gonna get this count, this whatever. It's just very interesting, like how much people ask of you for their own comfort. And that's the part of intersectionality that I've always run up with, is just like, oh, can you be like a little bit less assertive or a little bit less this, or not bring up the Black part of this? And it's like, well, I'm still involved in this situation, so I do need representation for myself. And I feel like they always turn it into kind of being a victim. Like, that's a part that really gets to me. It's just like, oh, well, you're making yourself a victim if you need that much attention. And it's like, no, I need that support in a different way.
I think the allyship is like something that we were just talking about this the other day. Like, where is the allyship? Like, I'm here to support you and everything that you want to do. And, like, I'm all about it. No problem. I feel like we are constantly showing up for other people. Right. But when we say what our issues are, there's always a question. There's always well, maybe it's because of this, or maybe it's because of that. It's never just a straight up, oh my God, I can't believe that happened to you. I can clearly see that, these are the issues and that's why that happened to you, without any question. I mean, and that's just another layer of exhaustion too, that you have to not only experience all these terrible things we experience as Black women, but then on top of that, you have to explain yourself and prove that it really happened to you. So, I mean, for me, allyship would be something that if people could be serious about really helping us and really listening to our problems, that would be great.
And like Afeni said, like, a lot of it might not affect you. But
right, it's not for
you need to be for the betterment of me, period.
Right, exactly. We're for things that are not going to affect us.
So where's that? Yeah. Where's that connection?
Kim?
So I happen to stand at the intersection of a Black disabled woman. And, when we talk about intersectionality, I am comfortable being a Black disabled woman. It is my place in capitalism and in this white supremacist patriarchal nation that we exist in. That's what makes being a Black disabled woman uncomfortable, right? Because of all the targeted discrimination and misogynoir and ableism specifically that disabled people encounter. And, as Black women, because of our status in the social hierarchy, intentionally put at or near the bottom, we are forced to always center other people's comfort, be it the comfort of white people or the comfort of men or the comfort of rich people, to the detriment of our own, right? We have to make sure that other people are taken care of before our own needs are even addressed or even thought of. So I want to emphasize this more so from a disability perspective as well, because my disability is progressive. Sometimes it's visible, sometimes it's invisible, but it wasn't something that I grew up with. It is something that has happened to me as an adult. And as I experience this journey, I am made very, very, very aware of the inaccessibility that continues to exist in this country, specifically in the level of ableism. And as we are dealing with this COVID pandemic, tragically, not only has it taken 1 million people from this country, 1 million people from their loved ones here just in the US, but this is a mass disability event. People who have contracted COVID and who have survived COVID are dealing with ongoing chronic conditions that they previously did not have. And I think it's so important that we have to do what we can to advocate for policies and elect people that are going to implement these policies that emphasize the necessity of nationalized healthcare, because we have a lot of people who are going to be recovering from COVID, who are going to be newly disabled, a lot of kids as well. We still don't know what the ongoing effect. Oh, I'm sorry, Sabby. I didn't realize that COVID is something I should not have been saying. But there's a lot of ripple effects that continue to go on from this massive health crisis and pandemic that we're still dealing with. So as a Black disabled woman, I feel like I see these issues extremely clearly because of where I am on the social hierarchy. I'm at the bottom looking up, so I can see everybody. Not everybody looks down and can see me.
Yeah, well said, Kim. I actually have a friend of mine that's been having symptoms for over a month. So like these are real issues. And I know Abby Martin talked about this recently on Twitter, that she's still having symptoms as well. Delilah?
Yeah, these are all very, very relevant points. And I just like, I'm feeling it. We all are saying, because it's very hard. I think for me, just like as a candidate, like working with the Green Party has been very illuminating to me, all of the flaws that are inherent in our systems. So like I am, I am a survivor, and so I have PTSD, and as somebody who that makes me an advocate for a lot of reasons. It makes me an advocate for women. It makes me an advocate for healthcare. It makes me an advocate for on a lot of fronts, because women are aggressed upon in a lot of different ways. So that's one part of it. I'm also Latina, and I'm also Indigenous, and all the time people are like, you got to pick one, you can't be both. And it's like, that's how I was raised. I can't just shed part of my identity to fit better into your mold so that you can, use me for your agenda. What I'm trying to fight for solidarity for all of us, for similar things. Because like for me, people are like, oh, you shouldn't say that. You're a candidate, and I don't think that you should say that because it makes us look bad in the Green Party. And it's like, actually, I'm making y'all look good because I'm talking about these problems. Because if you ignore these problems, they don't just go away. And my goal is to talk about and address and find solutions to these systemic problems. For me, it always goes back to colonialism and capitalism. We are all victims of those structures. And so for me, I have heard, like, you can't do all those things. You can't be all these people. You can't be in solidarity with these people. And it's like, I can and I will, because it's very important to me. It's not just part of who I am as my identity. It's part of like my goal as a human being to make sure that this place is better off than when we came here. So yeah, I don't know if that fully answered your question, but that's just how I feel about it.
Josana?
I'm here like silently calling upon all the ancestors to bless the way as we go through this road. Wow. it's a lot for me since I migrated, right? Like since I came to the core of the whole problem of the world, since I came to the castle of white supremacy. It lives here as the queen that dominates everything, right? And then I pointed out as an outsider because I will always, for the people that are migrating to the US, you always going to be seen, treated, and feel like an outsider. So as an outsider, I started pointing out all the problems and I started seeing the shoulders. Because intersectionality for me, it's like it's putting us as like it represents us positively so we can understand, right? Somebody had to draw so we can understand our particularities. And we like this file cabinet filled with drawers. Somebody translate the English for the other people. Please help me with that. So we have all these little drawers inside, like that we are part of, but at the same time, we are one individual. And as Afeni brilliantly said, you can't separate it. You can't separate the way we were brought and raised in the world, right? And when we bring these things up and they bother so much, if you were bothered by them, you should look into yourself. Because it is a lie that the system won't change from within. I'm not talking about the outside system that represents what we got right now. I'm talking about real change for the real world that we want to see. It comes from the within me, within each and every one of you. And I can only bring on change when I work this change inside of me. And it's funny to see as a Black, Indigenous, queer, Latina, woman, immigrant, how all these parts of me and all my ancestors that walked the way, that paved the way so I could walk on it, how when I bring this up in the castle of white supremacy, it bothers people so much. And it would be beautiful to see if it bothered the people that I surely want to bother. Everybody knows that I have that talent to bother white people, and I'm here for that, to be honest. But I can see that reflected in this country within my own brothers and sisters. Because there is a sister that has this accent, that speaks English like this, and that bothers. When we bring up the solutions and the problems that have to be worked on. Because if the situation is not treated as a global situation, I'm talking about revolution. If it's not treated as a global situation, we are never going to move. Because then I just want to use the shoes of the white man and keep on walking the way they paved. I just want to be the next leader. I don't want to see change. The issue is global. And if I don't go through every single drawer in me and understand the other as a reflection of myself, but with their own history, it's not going to come. It's not going to be possible. So, yes, I love this theme. I'm ready.
I want to give a shout out to Oz. Thanks so much for the super chat. Great to see all these wonderful, thoughtful ladies discuss this very important issue. Thank you so much for that. And shout out to JB is in the chat. Even if being an ally doesn't affect me personally, the benefits of uplifting women, especially ethnic women, is about embracing humanity. It's also just the right thing to do. Full stop. Thank you so much for that, JB. This is an interesting discussion because it was just a couple days ago, Kim and I were talking about Black women leaving the workplace, like leaving their jobs. And most of you know, if you've been with me for at least like the 2 weeks, you know that I left my job. And the reason why I left my job is because I didn't appreciate the way that Black people, but in particular Black women, there's more women than men, were treated at that organization. And so when we talk about inequalities and inequity, when Afeni was talking about like we're supposed to forget who we are and we're supposed to go along with all the movements that are for everyone, right? The white movements like Medicare for all, canceling student loan debt. We're supposed to go along with those movements that benefit everyone. But when it comes to issues that are specifically for Black people, Black women, or people of color, all of a sudden those same people don't want to come on board for our issues. And it is a problem. And I've experienced that in my personal life. I've experienced that in the workplace. And I think it's a little bit more trickier in the workplace, right? Because at the same time, you need your job. What do you do? And so I absolutely left that situation. And the question that I have to everyone on the panel, what do you do when you have these conflicts where people don't want to accept you as your full self and it's in a particular space that you may not be able to leave, such as your job? So I'm gonna go back to the top with Afeni.
Yeah. I definitely experienced this in the military. Like, what is it? AR 670 dash something. AR 670 1. That's what it is. That's like the Army dress code within like the Army Code of Conduct. And literally, they might as well have just said no Black people. Like, they might as well said no Black women specifically. You can't have your hair in cornrows. You can't have locks. You can't have an uneven haircut. It was just so many different things. And I'm like, you can't try to wear your natural hair. If you wear your natural hair, it has to fit within the confines of a patrol cap. I don't know if y'all can imagine, like, the hats that they be wearing or whatever in the military. But how is my luxurious 4C Bush going to get into that? It's not. Okay. It is not. That's the whole point. And like, I see so many Black women, especially like in the military, that, have to like relax their hair or constantly wear like extensions and stuff like that. And Black women can do that. But to be forced into that because like you literally have no other choice stylistically, it was honestly just really toxic for me. And like I really feel like it's not talked about enough about the fact that Ida B. Wells and Susan B. Anthony had beef. Truly, they were beefing. Like they were not cool. So like just because we are all in the same, just because we are all supposed to be fighting for the same things, there are literally so many historical instances where Black women especially have to sacrifice parts of our identities to try to be in community with other people, to try to support other people's movements. Ida B. Wells wasn't going like that. I mean, she was going all around to all the newspapers talking shit about Susan B. Anthony, about how racist she was, as she should. But like this is like a real problem within the organizing space. It's like a real problem with any social movement, especially in this white supremacist ass, racist ass country. You have like the labor movement where we were left out, left all the way out. Black people just left all the way out. You have like meaningful healthcare reforms that came through. Again, we were left out. Like safety, left out. Drug trials, we're left out. So when I'm talking about the importance of being comfortable as a Black person and as a Black woman, as a Black queer woman, that means that, I should not have to shrink certain parts of myself in order to be in the same space as you. And being in spaces where like you have no choice but to put parts of yourself away, but to shrink yourself, like that can be very like damaging to the spirit. And that's like so much of what being Black in America really is being in being in educational spaces and being Black is having to constantly be murdered in spirit every single day. So that trauma that is carried, like we're already carrying the generational trauma of our ancestors. Let's be very clear. If you're a Black and Indigenous person, you are born with the genealogy of your ancestors, which means that you feel their pain. You feel like you have some, like, even like some of your memories, your triggers, like all of those things are a part of who you are. It is ingrained in us. So living in a space where there's no accountability, there's no like real recourse for like what has happened to Black people, that is stressful. It is traumatic, and it's a lot. It is truly a lot. And I just really don't think that, in the space, people really get that. They don't really see that. They don't feel it. They want to say like, oh, well, you're not being inclusive. And when I hear that, I just want to say like, check your ego, because we really have to realize that some shit is not for you, period.
Yeah, I want to comment really quick about the hair issue because this is actually happening in some public schools as well, where Black girls are being told that they can't wear braids in their hair, they can't have extensions. There was actually two sisters, this was on the local news here, that were expelled from their school because they had extensions. And they said that their hairstyle was a distraction. And their mother came forward and said, meanwhile, it's okay for the white kids to have pink.
Oh no.
Oh no, we lost Sab. Right in the middle of pink and purple hair.
Damn.
And they're so edgy, right?
Well,
Yeah. So edgy.
Okay, I'm back.
She's back.
There you go. Hey, girl.
Sorry. That was weird. Let me make sure my mic is connected. They didn't want me to say that. See, they didn't want me to say that. But anyway, what I was saying was like, he was saying that the white girls could have pink and purple like dye in their hair, and that's not considered a distraction. Anyway, it made local news. And so, of course, they let the girls come back to the school. But it's just the fact that now that's something that was not targeted towards all girls. That was specifically targeted towards Black girls. And that's what I want people to understand. So when you say that we should be for these events and all of these movements that are for everybody and not just focus on the movements that are for us, well, then why do we have all these differences throughout the school place, throughout the workplace, even when you go fill out a job application? What do they put on the job application? They want to know your race, right? They also want to know your gender. Why do they ask that for like even credit card applications? Why do they need to know that? So to say that it doesn't matter and people don't care, it matters. And people do care. I'm going to go to Keisha and Courtney.
Man, so many points to touch on. I think something also important to touch on with the story that you even noted is that I'm sure social media had a big part in helping these girls get their story out there. I mean, Keisha had a principal that hated her, or vice principal that then came to my school and became my principal and hated me for no reason.
Right.
We were some of the only Black girls in the whole school. And if we had had social media, I do wonder how differently that would have gone. But that's a part of allyship, like with this whole conversation. And I think Afeni kind of touched on it as well. But if you're going to be an ally, there is a certain point where you have to put yourself on the line. Mm-hmm. And I like hate to use something like so cliche as Marilyn Monroe. I mean, I love her as a figure, but she made sure to make sure Ella Fitzgerald could perform. She sat in the front row and came every night. She was like, listen, it's fine. If you don't want to invite me anymore after this, whatever, I don't care. I'm sure she also got shit for, parts and things like that, but she stood by what she believed in. Mm-hmm. And it takes that. I mean, as strong as I think we all want to be, a big part of this issue is the power dynamic, and the people who have the power a lot of times are white people. Depending on the situation, sometimes that can change, but most of the time it's white people. And so it takes somebody, I think, in that powerful position. And so powerfully what Kimberly said, like that she's looking up, somebody to look down, because how else are you supposed to pull anybody up,
Oof, yeah. Okay, first I'm just going to say to Alex M in the chats, I'm 41. So, okay, there's some older people on here. I'm glad that you think I look so young. But Sabs, you were talking about, how do you handle this in the workplace? And I feel like we're at such a turning point right now because a lot of people, it's the great resignation and all of that. And people are feeling more comfortable with, trying to find alternate ways of work or just leaving their jobs altogether if they're not happy. I think we've reached a point where hopefully people can take, us women at least can take a little bit more of our power and feel confident in saying, this happened at the workplace. I don't feel cool with that. And if you don't fix it right now, I'm leaving. You don't think?
Well, no, I think something I want to add on that is that's privilege though. Like that's still a huge amount of privilege. Like from where I sit, I know personally, like my answer to that with my issues at jobs have been to be very assertive and to stand my ground.
Right.
I've had to have bosses put in cameras because other coworkers were saying I was stealing or something like that. That's how much I just stand up for myself. the discrimination. So I feel like you have to stand your ground, but I also feel like when you can be assertive and
When you
do
can,
stand
right.
up for yourself,
Mhm.
you have a set of privilege that you're falling back on. Not everybody will have a parents or something to be able to help them. Not everybody's
Very
going
true.
to be, but you know what I mean? Like, I feel like I've left jobs because I was like, this is wrong and these people were racist.
Mhm.
But if that was my only option, I had to stay at that job. I mean, I don't know what the answer is, I guess, beyond that.
Yeah, no, I don't know what the answer is, but I mean, I think that, I mean, I'm hoping that this is a time where we can maybe push back a little bit. Like, I mean, I think I've worked at one job where it was, you know, there were 2 other Black people working there, and the boss came at us with like, oh, well, you guys aren't really dressing the part properly, you know, and like, luckily, one of us, it wasn't me, it was actually a guy, but, you know, better that it was a guy, probably was able to kind of stand up for everyone and say like, you know, we're artists, so we don't need to dress the part, and kind of speak up for us. But I mean, as women, I would hope that, I don't know, guys, I don't know what's going to happen, because so many women have stopped working at this point through the pandemic that it's really unclear as to whether or not we're going to back to work at all. So I would hope that employers would want to have us back at work and therefore hear our concerns, I think. But that's pie in the sky. So I don't know if that's really going to happen.
I don't see it change.
Thanks so much for the
Hold
tip
on, real
and
fast.
Ronnie
Can I
Kim.
just address this? Stop calling stop calling the fact that I exist as a Black woman in America identity politics. Like, I have to talk about my condition. Just like white people have to talk about their condition, working class white people talk about their condition. Why the fuck would I continuously ignore a very large part of my identity and my life? Like, identity politics has been poisoned by the left and weaponized by the Democratic Party. That is not what this is. That is not what this is. Black women, Indigenous women, women of color, period. Like, I kind of hate the of color thing, but women of color, period, should be able to, you know, express themselves and it not be all of that. Like, come on now, y'all. Like, this is, again, like, it comes up to like, why, like, it just comes up to like you sounding like we're unjustified for being as angry as we are.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not unjustified. So, like, relax.
But also, who are we helping? We have nobody representing us. So we're not playing the politics on our side. You know, literally nobody's even pretending to represent us. I would even appreciate that. I mean, damn. All right. So.
No, but I have a point to that in just a second. Thank you so much, Ronnie. On Rockfin, if it's not for women, we would all be living in caves still. Not to say there aren't crap women in power in this world. There are good women like you all. Should be supported all the way. Thank you so much for that, Ronnie. To that point, here's the problem. There are some people who are watching this who for years you have been listening to a lot of white male commentators on the left who have brainwashed you and have told you that intersectionality is not real, that we shouldn't talk about people being gay or Black because that's identity politics. And I want to remind you that they do not sit at those intersections. When they were telling you that, they are doing so to make sure that white people remain comfortable. That is the thing. Why do you think it was okay for them to brag about Bernie Sanders wanting Medicare for all, wanting to cancel student loan debt? The moment reparations was brought up, they said, no, don't do that because you'll alienate white people. Their job is to make sure that white people in this space, no matter what, remain comfortable. You've been listening to them, and I think you need to start listening to other people. I'm gonna go on to Kim.
Well, let me say something really quickly about the notion of identity politics, because let's be very clear. In this white supremacist settler colony that we live in, identity politics have been codified in every aspect of our society since the founding of this rotten colony, right? The 3/5 compromise is identity politics. The Chinese Exclusion Act is identity politics. Removing Native children from their tribes and sending them to schools where they were prohibited from learning their language and practicing their culture is identity politics. Don't ask, don't tell is identity politics. Banning gay marriage is identity politics. So what the fuck is somebody talking about some damn identity politics being weaponized? When haven't identities been weaponized against marginalized people, specifically against Black and brown people and Black and brown women and Black and brown gay folks and Black and brown non-binary people. So we need to disavow ourselves of that sort of weird framing of identity politics. The white man, what is it? The Black man has no rights that the white man has to adhere to. I'm screwing up that quote quite a bit from Supreme Court Justice Roger Taney in a one of the landmark decisions. I don't think it was Plessy v. Ferguson. It was one of the other ones, but I smoke a lot of weed, so y'all have to bear with me. Sometimes I forget things. But anyway, so for especially some of our white allies, like, please, like, put identity politics on the shelf. Please don't use that phrase when talking to non-white and non-men folks, because it's bullshit. And if you are honest about the history of this nation, you could very easily acknowledge that the notion of identity politics, at least weaponized against Black people and brown people from speaking about our experience, is nonsense. Because every single one of us and our ancestors have been targeted for identity politics in this nation legally in the law. Jim Crow was identity politics. But I wanted to circle back to Sabby's point and her experience about leaving her job, which, by the way, Sabrina, I'm extremely proud of you for doing that, because I understand how difficult that can be. And I have to say, personally, from my experience working in the corporate landscape and even working in a media landscape, is a soul crushing experience. And the only reason that I had the luxury, and I will call it a luxury, to leave certain jobs when I felt as though I wasn't being treated well or I wasn't being paid comparable to my colleagues, is because I don't have children. And because I'm very fortunate that I have a mother who has a home that I can return to. And there's a lot of privilege in that. And I understand that. And, consequently, these are decisions that I made for myself to leave certain positions, even though it may have set me back career-wise, or it may have even set me back financially wise, because at the end of the day, I felt as though these toxic environments were literally killing me. Like, and this is not a diagnosis that I received from any doctor. It's like, oh my God, if I have to go and deal with this for another week, another month, another day, I might actually die. And I say it tongue in cheek, but no, this is legit. Like, we as Black women experience higher levels of diabetes, of hypertension, of certain cancers. And some of these things are indeed triggered by stress. So even though it is a sometimes impossible decision to make whether or not to stay at a job that's toxic and not paying you, most importantly, not paying you, we have to prioritize, in some cases, our health. And again, underscore the fact that I'm saying this as a privileged person who does not have children to think of and who had a home to go back to. But we do have to consider, certain sacrifices that we can consider making in order to preserve our actual health, our mental health, and our emotional health as well.
Delilah?
It's hard to follow up, Kim, because those are all amazing points. And you know what I mean? I feel very represented by hearing you say how much how hard it is just existing in these spaces. Because going back to what we were talking about earlier, I wrote down erasure, because I'm supposed to, the obligation for me to exist in this space as just a person who even is involved with politics. I have to be willing to erase a part of myself to be more palatable for other people, because the history of this country is not comfortable, and you're gonna miss me with that, because I'm not going to do that. There's no way, because it is, as Fanny said, it's traumatizing, because it is. When you're asked to give up who you are and your identity and forget your history and your past and what makes you you, just to water yourself down so that you can exist in a white space. First of all, y'all are existing here. We don't have to make you comfortable. And I'm really disgusted with that notion that we have to make people comfortable for them to listen to us. No, I don't. I don't have to make you comfortable to hear me. I'll just get louder. And people are like, we don't really like that about you. And I'm like, that's okay too. Because I know, people are just like, what tribe are you, what this, and they want to ask me and have me validate who I am and what I am and how should I exist so that they're comfortable accepting me. And I don't have to do that. I know who I am. I know what my ancestors are speaking to me, and I know how to live my life and be true to myself. And that takes such strength and courage on a regular basis. And it's like, I really, as a mother, when I see those frameworks, those white systems that are where like our kids are getting pushed into and we ourselves had to get pushed through, and I see people repeating things that don't make sense, like, oh well, so and so, like just making like comments about other genders, other colors, other cultures, and that comfort, that white privilege of like being just a white mediocre person and having all of the caucasity to say, oh, don't you people all do this, or oh, don't you people this. It's like, no, we like, it's way past time for y'all. You need to be quiet. Like, nobody has to sit down and listen to you telling us how we're supposed to exist. It's time for y'all to be quiet and listen. And like, that's why what we're doing is so important, because there aren't a lot of people listening. Everybody wants to listen to the white mediocre man explain the world and white supremacy and colonialism and why they need to be quiet. You're not the people to solve these solutions, like to solve these problems. So you need to take a seat, sit down, and listen to the rest of us, and allow us, not allow. We will demand to exist regardless of how comfortable they feel.
Delilah has like quick question. Excuse me. Has the Green Party, have they addressed any of like your concerns in reference to this?
I'm going to try and say this nicely, but in short, no, because I get a lot of feedback. We're supposed to be this bright beacon of hope. Yes, like we're supposed to be like, oh, we're not corrupt like that, but we very rarely acknowledge these root problems, and very rarely acknowledge the racism and classism inherent in these comfortable spaces for white people. And I'm here to challenge that. So not yet.
Josana?
Yeah, I want to answer the question with a story that happened to me back in Brazil, but I also want to say some stuff about the US. Like, white people, it's time for you to be uncomfortable. Otherwise, we're not going to change anything. Bear with us while you feel uncomfortable. Look at yourself and change your white supremacist attitude. That said, I'm going to tell my story. So I used to work in TV in Brazil. I'm an actor. And I was doing a telenovela. Everybody knows, like, it's popular, like telenovelas. And I was, of course, playing a small part and then like demeaning jobs. And we have to go through this conversation. So I was playing a housemaid and I wore a uniform. So this day we were shooting in a different studio. So we didn't eat in the studio that we were. I had to go cross. And I see all the other actresses putting on robes on top of the clothing for the character, costumes. And I was like, why are they doing that? And I just walked in my uniform. So when I'm coming back out of the restaurant, this man, he does something that in Portuguese, good Brazilian Portuguese, you say encoxou. This man came behind me and he grabbed me around.
Uh-oh. I think you froze, Josana. You froze in an interesting position.
You both froze right when the story was about to
This is sabotage. They don't want Black women's voices out there. This is sabotage.
Well, while we wait for Josana, Sean said, I'm a white male from Canada and I absolutely love you, Sabby, and all your beautiful guests. I watch as much as possible to understand what even my own sister has experienced in a bad, bad way. Thanks so much, Sean. And Joe OWS said, it's teach ins and teach outs such as this that powered many movements. We need more platforms such as this. Thank you, ladies. Thanks so much, Joe. And JB said,
Oh, sorry. Go ahead. Read that one.
We as men need to stand behind and support our Black and brown sisters and follow them as they take the lead in their liberation. Thanks so much, JB. What were you saying?
Just on the topic of work, in case just saw up, she'll probably pop back in. But we recently were asked to guest host on a pretty liberal, like Democrat liberal, very big YouTube channel. They have like 350,000 subscribers.
Mm-hmm.
The guy found us. He's a white guy,
right?
And he like sent us a lighting kit and sent us his camera to use. Mm-hmm. And the videos that we make, you know, we're leftists. We are Black women. We talk about our experience.
Our videos have been up. There were like 120 videos or something up by the time he reached out to us. So the research was there if he would have done it.
Yeah. And he also said to us like, oh, I really like what you all do. We were like, have you watched our videos? And he said, yes. But, you know, don't scare my Democrat audience, my liberal audience or whatever. Mm-hmm. And we still like pulled it back a lot for what we do, for our opinions, and we tried to like almost make it like we were talking to our parents. Like our parents are hardcore Democrats.
Right.
This guy, like he was texting us and like, oh yeah, like you guys are going to be so great and we support you. Mm-hmm. And we talked about January 6th coverage where we were like, that's a little bit,
it's too much.
It's a bit much. Too much. We have climate change and wages and a lot of other issues to talk about. And this guy stopped texting us and only had his manager talk to us.
Right.
He just, so we're supposed to have a meeting with him tomorrow, I guess, about what we covered. But like, we are two Black women. What we have on our channel is what we've had. And he expected us, I think he expected us to like really tame down what we thought for the comfortability of his audience. And it was exhausting.
It was the hardest thing to do. We pulled ourselves back so much. And at the end, I feel like we were so I mean,
the liberals are the worst. They were the first ones to call us
Diamond and
Silk. Which I called.
They were the first ones to say that. I mean,
because we said something about Nancy Pelosi's stocks.
God forbid you call out little Joe and Nancy. I mean, come on. I mean, it was a crazy experience, but I mean, he really came to us saying he, you know, was all for it. He was supportive. He was all here for us. I feel like he really felt like he found his, he was having some white guilt maybe. And I feel like he found two Black girls who were talking about politics. And he said, oh, cool. I'm gonna go.
Oh, I'll give you a light kit. You're gonna say whatever I say. No, bitch, we're gonna say what we want to say. If we have an audience of 350,000, I'm gonna say what we want to say.
The comments were hot.
Sorry,
the comments.
You should have thought about that.
Yeah, the comments were really hot, and we don't know if this guy is mad with us or what. But I mean, this was just, one of those opportunities where it's like, you know what? We could have really dialed it back and not said what we wanted to say, but I feel like all of our the tone was different. Like we didn't come as hard as we would, but the underlying core of what we were saying, the actual facts and the points were all the same as what we would normally say. And he was pissed. I think that we didn't
allyship. It's faux
exactly.
allyship.
You can't have faux allyship.
He was trying to say, oh, well, I want you all to be presented to a bigger audience and to get your information out there. He was a guy, he guest hosted for David Pakman. So it's like, very along that line. Yes.
Right.
Yes. We do not do David Pakman. I don't know what he thought we did, but we do not do David Pakman. So he's like really upset, I think. But listen, we talked about climate change and all kinds of shit. So get over it.
Whatever.
But that's what they expect, for you to be silent, you know?
Right. And it's like when you have these opportunities for 300,000 or however many viewers that might be on your eyeballs, we have to seize these moments and say what we're going to say, and they have to deal with it. And that's that. Right. Deal with it.
Oh my God. Sorry, Josana, you didn't get a chance to finish your story. You stopped at, he put his arms around you.
Woof, the internet like disappeared and pulled me towards his deck. And then I was like very scared, and that man was like grabbing me and like doing stuff to me, broad daylight at workplace. And like in Brazil, men, when they're catcalling you, they're actually like describing what they're gonna do to you in bed. Doesn't matter if you're 11 years old or if you are 50. It doesn't matter. They are very sexually violent in their words as well. And that, but my mom, when that would happen to me and I would complain, she'd be like, don't complain, because she's also a survivor, so she has PTSD. She'd be like, don't, just pretend it's not with you. So we never learn how to deal with that. And in that day when that happened there, I was like lost, and I go back and they have to get my nails done, and I'm getting my nails done and I start crying. I burst out crying. And then the lady was like, what's going on? I was like, oh no, because this man did this, but it's silly. It's just silly. And she was like, this is not silly. And then she tells the producer. And then the producer, long story short, they watch the security cameras. They call the man over. And the man says, well, but I looked at her and I thought she was the help. That was the man's answer. That studio is like a city, a town. So there are spaces and bathrooms that there are no security cameras. So I imagine my sisters that work as the help suffering sexual abuse, actually being raped at work. Because they can't do that with them. And the producer came to me to say that he was, oh, I'm so sorry that we didn't take care of this faster and blah, blah. But you know, actresses, they always overreact. So yes, that's my place of work story. And also in the sense of not feeling comfortable, not feeling because of the person that you are, every day I wonder if I should be in this country. Every single minute of my existence in this country is me wondering, should I stay or should I go? But the conclusion that I take from that is like, everywhere I go in this world, the pain will continue to exist. So it's time for me to just like, and bring on change, because like, it's not going to be for me, it's going to be for the next generations. And I do not want any more Black women, Black Indigenous women, Black Indigenous Latino women having those stories to tell. So I might as well just try, connect, and try and bring on change. And I think the world, the way it is right now, it's not round. It is. I'm sorry. I'm not saying that Earth is flat. I'm just saying that the way we organize ourselves in society right now, we are taking our round world and transforming it in a triangle. I want to say pyramid, but I don't know if I can pronounce it properly. In a pyramid, and we are in the bottom of it. The very, 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 very teeny, large, actually, bottom of it. So yeah.
If I could just add, yes, Josana, you belong here. You know what I'm saying? And I understand a little bit about that because my grandparents are immigrants, the ones that I got to meet, you know, and that symptom of feeling like you don't belong, that is taught, and I'm so proud of you for rejecting that, and you know what I mean, trying to make connections where you can. And I just wanted to add, you were right. Like, I think we are on the bottom. Us workers, women, people of color, Black and brown, immigrants, all of us, we're on the bottom. We do most of the labor, we do most of the work, and everybody else profits off of our shoulders. And I think one of the biggest struggles for us all going through this very difficult landscape is that you don't find allies where you think that you would. I've many times been wronged and expected to find allyship with somebody that I thought was similar, and just to see them cut you down to advance themselves in the model, you know what I'm saying? That goes back to colonialism. Like, you're gonna sell out your common and your common ally, just to advance yourself just a tiny bit. And you're missing the whole big picture. You know what I'm saying? We don't all have to be struggling and fighting each other. And that's something that I see happening way too much still, is that people that I would hope I could relate to, the people that I would hope would be on the same front are they're some of the first ones to say, oh, you're aggressive, or you're attacking me, and make themselves a white victim so that they can just advance a little bit further in this messed up system. And it's hard to see that and live with that, because there's some people that you're not gonna meet, and it's sad.
Yeah, that's a good point, Delilah. I have questions about the language issue, and this is something I've noticed. I have a problem with this every time I see this happen. I remember seeing, like, even when I was in high school, I remember like some of the kids, we had like military family, right? So went to school with everybody. And to be fair, not everyone's mom spoke perfect English, right? So one of the things that used to like irk me is when I would hear Americans say, why are they speaking a foreign language? This is America, speak English. As if those kids are supposed to hide a part of their self. This goes back to the intersectionality. They're supposed to hide a part of their self so that Americans feel comfortable. And I think I'm going to start with, let's see where I left off. Kim, I know you haven't spoken in a while. I want to get your opinion on this, and then obviously, of course, Delilah and Josana, because this is a problem, and I haven't seen this in other countries, but I'm sure it may happen as well. But why should someone have to hide their native language so that other Americans here feel more comfortable? I'm gonna go to you, Kim.
Well, I think really it's only non-white immigrants have to hide their language and their culture. I used to work for Russian media and had a number of white Russian coworkers. And when we would cover the issue of brown immigration, brown and black immigration, especially when it presents itself in headlines at the southern border, I'd ask them, hey, have you ever been detained, or have you ever been stopped or asked by anybody from Homeland Security or INS, as it was, referred to at the time, ICE? And they would sort of smile and be like, no, never happened to me. And I'm like, I wonder why that is. Because, the privilege of white skin, regardless of whether or not it was born in this colony or no, that white privilege activates immediately once you step foot in the United States of America. So, and another point, sort of about how that specifically that sort of bigotry and discrimination and contempt for speakers of other languages really reserved, especially exclusively for non-white folks. I can't remember who it was. It might have been John Oliver. It might have been another, related sort of comedy outlet. I don't remember if it was The Daily Show or who it was, but someone did a deep dive into Tommy Lauren's ancestry. Tommy Lauren, conservative mouthpiece, whatever, terrible person, basically. And what they found is that, Tommy's ancestors, her immigrant ancestors who came to America from Russia, during the census, it was noted that her ancestor refused to learn English, like just would defiant in maintaining their Russian language. So again, this is another way in which brown and black people are targeted. This forced assimilation into Americanness, which is basically whiteness, which is really exclusively whiteness, and the pressures that puts upon communities, upon generations. I mean, shoot, and then we have people who perhaps are Native Americans, meaning, people who were born here, Black people who have been born here for generations and generations, and maybe they have very thick country accents, or they may not speak exclusively, proper English, and the discrimination that comes and that follows as a result of that as well. So I think that's just another way. Another one of the many ways that they target the language, they target our hair, they target our dress, they target our hair color, anything that is not acceptable to the white palate is a distraction, right? Sort of circling back to your earlier story about the young Black girls who wore extensions in their hair and their school singled them out. I mean, those kinds of stories tragically have been happening for generations. Not that long ago, if you guys remember, I want to say maybe this is like 2 and 3 years ago now, but the young Black kid who had dreadlocks in New Jersey and who was at his wrestling tournament, and they made him cut his hair right then and there in the gymnasium in order for him to compete. I mean, the targeting of our culture and basically our entire aesthetic is just part and parcel for the way that white supremacy continues to try to operate to bring us down, to dismantle us literally brick by brick by criminalizing basically the way we appear and the way our hair grows naturally and our expression in our speech and in our clothing. They're not going to be satisfied until we have fully assimilated. But what the weird thing is that white America never ceases to stay biting off our style, right? Like, they want us to be them, but then they want to be us at the same time. So yes, I agree with you.
I want to get Delilah and Josanna in here really quick about like your experiences with the language issue in the United States.
I just want to note that English isn't this continent's first language. So yes, it's very much a white supremacy problem that kind of behavior is enforced, and it is a cultural problem. And it's not just white culture. For me, if you are going to go against somebody because you can't understand their accent, or their culture is something that you're uncomfortable with, and the first instinct is for you to call that out rather than question your own lack of identity, to be so fragile that you're feeling uncomfortable about somebody else's identity, then I mean, that's a you thing. Like, I can't spend too much time, you know what I'm saying? Like, people, I live in Texas and I've met so many racist people, and I've met a lot of really good people too, but it's like, with those people, I almost pity them because you're so blatantly ignorant to the truth. I don't need to spend my time explaining it to you. There's plenty of education if you want it, but they don't. So the ignorance is very much I think white supremacy feeds off of that ignorance, and I think it's, we end up being the ones that have to do the lessons and teach for free, and it's like, it's exhausting. I think maybe they could second guess themselves once in a while instead of expecting us to explain everything,
Josanna?
Oh, girl, we're gonna need another panel just so I can tell you my stories. Look how I speak. I mean, I've been in all stages of this. I've considered myself less smart because that's how I speak English since I moved. Actually, had a very good English with a British accent. I started studying English when I was 10 years old, and then the school was teaching British English. Once I moved in here, things got complicated because it's a different way to speak English. One thing I know is that this country doesn't have an official language. There's no document saying this is the official language of the United States of America. So it's really funny in the industry I work at, because it's almost impossible for me as an actor to get a job in TV here or film because the way I speak English. And it's funny because the relationship is always like, oh, but you have to have this standard American accent. And I go around and see American people speaking all kinds of English, and I'm like, where's this standard American accent? And then I see that's when people are speaking white.
Mm-hmm.
And then I have a movie to suggest that's called Sorry to Bother You. You're gonna understand why there's a problem with language, because you have to speak white. Everything that's different from sounding white is gonna be rejected.
And I see like people like in academics and like people that have like respect, they can have an accent in their English if they are white. So the problem is not with the language per se, it's more with who you are, where are you coming from? Because when this accent is a Latin, as in the root of the language being coming from, and you are considered Latinx person, then there is a problem with your English. But if it's an European accent, it's cool, can pass. And the thing about like speaking English, not speaking your native language, is that immigration has always to be like, you have to see the immigration through the lens of the core cultural identity of a country. I have a piece that I wrote, I think it's a performance, or maybe it's just going to be a text, whatever. It's called How to Be an American, because I'm in the path to the citizenship. And I look for, because if there is a white Brazilian and a black Brazilian in a room, you at some point they are both Brazilians. You're gonna see that they are both Brazilians. But here in America, everything is so scattered, and groups in little ghettos like together, and there is no core. And then in my mind before was like no core identity. Then I found there is xenophobia, and there is sexism, misogyny, and a lot of misogyny. You can go and make little pieces out of it, but xenophobia is the biggest one of them, in a sense of like, so if I'm speaking in a way that doesn't sound American, I would definitely be rejected, because if I want to migrate here, it's almost like I have to deny everything else and become this imaginary being, because there is no cultural core identity. So I do not know how should I eat, what are the dances, what is like I can't find these things. Whereas if you go to Brazil, you're gonna dance coco, samba, forró, chachado, congado, right? You don't even need to speak Portuguese. People be like, "Oh, look at the gringo, they dancing with it." Like it's a culture that involves, and here is the culture that rejects. So unfortunately, the core culture identity in this country is of rejection. So everything that's different from white and the idea of the supremacy, the exceptionalism. How can I say that word properly? American exceptionalism. It's rejected. So yeah, now I'm in a point that I'm like, well, these people want to talk to me. I'm gonna talk to them in front of a camera. I always speak funny. I hope they can understand me. But yeah, I always hear at like trying to get work like that. I sound like I need to sound standard American, which pretty much that valley accent that goes like this and speak like that. Oh my god, I don't know. I keep on looking for that accent, learning.
Yeah, I'm not the biggest fan of telling people that they have to assimilate. And the reason why I say that is because I noticed this with a lot of my students. Most of my students were international students. And one of the things that used to drive me crazy is that when kids come here from Asia, they have to change their name to an American name. And I never understood that. And I said, why do you have to change your name? They said, well, I have to pick up an American name because Americans won't be able to pronounce my name. And this was done across the board, by the way. Throughout higher ed, this is done across the board. So essentially, it's confusing to other people who come in and they see the name that's on their student record and they don't know that Zhijing is actually Justin. People don't put those two together, except for someone like me, the academic advisor, right? But I feel like, why didn't anyone stop and say, why can't we just learn how to pronounce their names? Why are we making them pick up an American name because they moved to this country? I have big problems with that. But if any, I want to go to you next about assimilation and about the language issue.
Absolutely. Well, I'm second gen, so like a lot of my family are like bilingual. Like we're Jamaican and Panamanian, so some of us speak. Well, we all speak Patois because we're from Cologne, which is like the Caribbean side of Panama. So everyone speaks Patois and Spanish. Like half the family, the other family just speaks Patois and English. So one thing that really bothered me when I was younger is like people would purposefully like try to act like they can't understand my grandmother, and her accent it's there, like what I'm saying, like she doesn't pronounce any of her h's, you see what I'm saying, but it's not so thick to the point where like you can't hear or comprehend what she is saying. Like stop playing. I remember I used to get so mad, like why are you being so disrespectful to her? Like I know you can hear what she's saying. If I can understand what she's saying, you can understand what she's saying. Stop that. And I remember when I was also like in the military, I was a public broadcast specialist, so I had to go through like media training and like radio training and stuff like that. And like I would like my main specialty was like being a radio show host. And in order to, be a radio show host, you have to speak like what Josana is saying, like standard American English. And a lot of those teachings are anti-Black, they're anti-AVE. You know what I'm saying? Like they don't like when you realize that Black people literally have a different type of vernacular English because of the segregation, and there are so many like other groups that probably like possibly have like similar things that just aren't like as widely studied as like AV is. But we even down to like the sign language, like American Sign Language and the sign language that Black deaf people know, not the same sign language. And so to tell people that they have to assimilate but constantly put barriers up so people can't actually be a part of anything, even if they wanted to do that, is ridiculous. And also, being, somebody who is from a migrant family, like a family that migrated here, if it wasn't for immigration, forced or not, we would not be the country that we are. Like, and I really hate it because a lot of the migrants that initially fled here and colonized this land were white people that were escaping persecution in their part of Europe. So if you can understand it for your ancestors, then why the fuck can't you understand it for mine? Because y'all before that y'all was shitting all over the halls of the tree, all over the palace of Versailles. You know what I'm saying? Before Black people taught you how to bathe. So I'm just really trying to understand why, like, if anybody has benefited from the melting pot theory, it has been white people, because y'all got to steal everything. We all right here, so you can copy, assimilate, appropriate. You can do whatever you can commodify. You can dehumanize. You can do everything you want to do. We all right here. So I don't understand. And white people should be the main people advocating for migration, because y'all would literally have no economy without it. Y'all would have no culture, no seasoning, nothing without it.
I'm sorry.
So, I really feel like y'all should be more, more a patriot, be more of an American, because without us, America would not be shit. Period. Period.
Alice Hamer said, "It's amazing as an old white lady, I can say things to cops, to border officials, live next to the Mexico border, and get away with controversial statements. I know if my skin were dark, totally different." And Susie Stone said, "Afeni, you're not having justice affects me because I want you to have all your rights." Thanks so much, Susie Stone. JB said, "People should not have to change their name to make us comfortable. If we can pronounce Timothy Chalamet." He went there.
Yeah.
Then we can pronounce other people's names.
Listen, nobody blinks an eye at Zach Galifianakis or Arnold Schwarzenegger or any of that, right? You learn how to somehow.
Y'all be saying those Russian names, they be rolling off your tongue. Okay.
In the Midwest, there are a lot of Kakowskis, Babowskis. Okay, we learn.
Oh man. Keisha and Courtney, I want to get you in as well in reference to the language issue and assimilation.
Where to begin?
Well, we've assimilated.
One of the reasons I stay off TikTok, I swear, and for the most part Instagram too, is assimilation. Like, it hurts my soul to see white people doing things that I know were originated by a Black person, and to be using our vernacular. And let me be clear. Court and I grew up in a very white place, so we don't even say a lot of the shit that these white people are saying.
I am a square. There's certain things I cannot say.
Like, we just, we grew up around a lot of white people, and there's certain shit that we just like, we don't feel like we feel cool saying it, so we wouldn't bother. But to see, honestly, it hurts my heart. Like, to see, white girls dressed up in all their makeup and wearing little beanie hats and being oh, and I fucking hate it. It's upsetting. I don't feel like but I don't feel like we should have to assimilate. I wish that they weren't able to obviously appropriate all of our things, but why should we have to change the way that we talk, especially we're country, so we have a lot of country things that we say, and why should we have to, what does that have to do with how smart I am or what I actually know about the world?
Okay, well, so I would have to say, I feel like the way we talk is because our parents talk super country. So with them being older Black people who talk super country, they were like, don't do that. The fact that Keisha's name is Keisha and my name is Courtney, we get treated very differently.
Right. We're 8 years apart. There was some time, and our parents thought, maybe we should
I thought that you
ease up on the Black.
Maybe it might be when I did stand up, I was like, if she did me a favor. Because just what you were saying with applications for gender, and you have to say your gender and your age and all of these other things, there's always looking for a way to discriminate against you. She could use her middle name if she wanted to, I guess,
But I don't.
But yeah, I mean, I think that's something that gets lost with the assimilation, is that I think a lot of people have assimilated. I think that a lot of people have already lost their culture. I mean, for us, our grandma Newtney, she lived out in a shack in the middle of the woods with a pig, but it was go to college. There was no make a farm or go do that. It was go do what the white man does, right? There cannot be the pride in what your family has already done. And so I think we have assimilated to a certain point. And so at this point, it's I feel like, what more do you want from us?
Right. Yeah.
We've gone so far. What more could you possibly want from us? And we're still denied. And so that's when it's what needs to change, because I feel like Black people always show up and say, okay, listen, I will compromise with you. Okay, listen, I will try it your way. And then we do that and we still get the rug pulled right out from under us.
And I think one thing that people who are not Black people don't understand is what we're missing. So we are constantly feeling a feeling of missing something. I'm I don't know who my ancestors are. I don't know where they came from. I don't know what language they spoke. I don't know what they like. I don't know literally anything about them. So I feel like that's a huge part of just generational PTSD that is I don't even know where I come from, and that's as just just Black American whose family is just straight from slavery. We didn't come from anywhere else but here, I don't know how we got here, but this is where we are. And that's a very hard, because it's obviously whatever our Irish side, I guess, of our family is, we don't know shit about them either. So there's just a feeling of homelessness and not being able to grasp onto anything, but at the same time feeling you need to assimilate to something it's just like a double slap in the face, because I already don't know where I come from, and now you want me to to just glom onto whatever it is that you want to do.
Well said. In reference to, there was something you said about people wanting to take our culture. Something I saw this when I was in middle school, and I'm embarrassed to admit that I had to watch this, but I was in band and it was part of band class. They showed us this movie called West Side Story. And I remember being so angry when I went home from school that day. I told my mom what I saw in that movie, and my mom was just like, oh my God, they made you watch West Side Story? Because she was like, that's a terrible movie. But for those who haven't seen it, in West Side Story, Natalie Wood, who's a white woman, is playing a Puerto Rican woman.
Mhm.
They couldn't just hire a Puerto Rican actress. And that actually happened quite often in Hollywood back then. Some of that still kind of happens now, to be honest,
Yeah.
when it comes to colorism. But I remember being so angry. Like, why would you not hire someone of that same ethnicity to play that role? And my mom was explaining to me, she was like, well, back then, a lot of people didn't have a problem with it. And I'm like, but how could they not? Like, how could they not see? And so I think about that also even today when I see some of the K-pop. I know K-pop is really popular. And I see like these K-pop groups using like Black dance moves, using like our type of music.
Mhm.
But yeah, if you were to go to South Korea, my dad was stationed in South Korea, as a Black person, you are heavily dismissed.
Mm.
Wow.
So it's one of those things. My dad said, he said, you have to understand South Korea is one of the most monolithic countries in the world. So if you go there as a Black person, you are really going to stand out. But why is it okay to take our culture, but not want to accept
Yeah.
us as people? And
I mean,
yeah, go ahead.
That's the way it's always been. You know, everyone wants to be Black, but don't want to be Black. Like, I mean, that's just the way it's always been. And it's so frustrating to me, honestly. Like, social media, I think, is killing us all, because not only am I seeing what my other friends are doing who have money or whatever and living their best lives, but I'm also seeing a bunch of people who don't have my culture take my culture and make money off of it and advance themselves off of it. I mean, it's like a soul suck times 2.
Can I jump in real quick?
And
Just for the can I jump in real quick just for what you said? I think it's important to bring up ethnicity and race, because when it takes to Central and South America, and the Latinx countries up north, if you are white in Puerto Rico, you're still a white person. You are not a person of color. Sorry, I have to say that. I have to take this out of my chest, and this is the moment to say that.
Yeah.
Like, a Latinx person, it's called that because they speak in a language that's rooted in Latin. But if you are white passing, and if you're comfortable in your country, not being harassed by the cops, not suffering racism, not being stopped, not having your life being hell for the person that you are, for the way you look, don't come to the US to play person of color. Don't play that card. That's ugly, and that's showing your white supremacy on that. Sorry, I have to take that out of my chest, because here is this mess with race and ethnicity. And on top of that, because I am Latina, have to claim my Blackness for my brothers and sisters, Black people here in the US, telling me straight up on my face that I cannot be Black because I'm from Brazil. What am I gonna do with all the years of racism? I was telling my friend today, Joy, she's in the comments. Hi. Kids bringing banana to the school, calling me a monkey, and the professor laughing at me. What am I gonna do with that? That now here in the US I have to claim my Blackness. I am conscious about colorism, and I shut up as a light-skinned person. But please, America, because like education, it's not inside a cubicle called university or school. Education is an everyday relationship. And because of compartmentalization, we here in this country are mostly uneducated. We don't have critical thinking, because we think education is for the moment that we are inside the school, and it's not. It's an every single minute activity that's happening in your brain. And I want to use this moment to claim, please, white passing Latinas, Latinx people, stop claiming that you are a person of color, because you are not. You are white.
Yeah, that's a good point, Josana. I think part of the reason is the reason why people are telling you here in this country, if you say you're from Brazil and they'll say, well, no, you're not Black, you're Brazilian, is because some people that, and I've experienced this a lot in Boston because we have a lot of internationals that live in the Boston area. Over the past couple of years, I have noticed a lot of people that move here from Brazil. When you do try to say that, they will correct you and say that they're not Black, that they are Brazilian. I also have experienced this with people from the DR. I've learned a hard way, a hard way. One time I made that mistake and I said, well, you're African American too, you're Black too. And it's been told to me multiple times by people who are from the Dominican Republic that they do not consider themselves to be Black or Black passing, even if their complexion is darker than mine. Now I kind of know where that mindset comes from with the DR because of the history and how they try to like erase the African culture from the country. So I do know about that. But I'm just letting you know, like, why people are saying that to you in this country. It doesn't make it right, but yeah.
Because it's also like race is class, right? Race is class. And in countries like DR, Brazil, if you were Black, you were lower class automatically. They don't care. You are lower class, you're going to be treated as lower class. And if you go to Brazil, which is the country with the biggest African population outside of the continent of Africa, 54% of the population of Brazil is Black. They admitting that or not, you're going to see that Black people are in the favelas. Black people are in the poor communities. Black people are poor. So there is a psychology of that. Like I remember people from DR saying, go away macaquitos to people from Haiti. So like that's ugly and that's sad. But there is also, Sabby, a lack of knowledge that I think it's on purpose because it's not passed on. Many people in the US don't know the history of sugarcane plantation. They think it's only cotton. They think our ancestors were only brought here in the North.
No, it's a good point. And I think this is another thing too, even with Americans, like even when it comes to, like we were talking about Puerto Ricans, a lot of people here assume that every Puerto Rican looks like J-Lo. They don't realize that like there are Puerto Ricans that are my complexion, that are darker than my complexion. Like, so I think when we talk about like those different countries and things like that, I think it's important that you pointed those things out. But this is why it's important to listen to people, to listen to people like Josana and to listen to people like everybody on this panel. This is why it's important to listen to people who have these experiences. Kim, I'm sorry. I said I was going to go to you next.
I guess when we're talking about appropriation and the way in which non-Black people or non-brown people will assume the aesthetics or the affects of Black and brown cultures. I mean, standard operating procedure in the U.S. I mean, the white culture steals everything that they gets its hands on, and that has been really the case for forever, really, especially when we're talking about cultural things like music and dancing and in artistry. These things have long been stolen and used as like props, or let me put on the effect of Blackness for a period. And I can relate to an aspect of what you're talking about, Sabby, when we talk about at least in the form of films in which Black and Latinx and Native people were often played by white actors, and roles were relatively scarce for Black actors, or if they were only roles of a certain kind. And of course, Elvis credited as the king of rock and roll, when everyone knows who invented rock and roll was not Elvis. The Rolling Stones and the Beatles did not, have the lone insight on blues. Obviously, everything that they did, they stole. I mean, there's no other way around that. So I think what we can do, because we obviously can't stop the whites from stealing. They love to steal. It's very much in their DNA. We just have to continue to really educate, especially our youth, about the origins of certain things, about who were the creators of things. I think especially culturally, I'm noticing with some younger generations, I mean, some things are just straight up being lost, right? People don't have certain knowledge or certain historical context of figures that are trotted out to us as though, no, this person is the icon of, say, this genre of music, when it's like, no, 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 actually that person stole or borrowed or was influenced quite a bit by this Black artist. And it's up to us, because as we know, the teaching of Black history, especially in the context of its relevance here in the United States, is intentionally not being taught. So please, if you have younger people in your life, like, don't assume that they know certain things. It's up to us to continually reinforce, especially these cultural things. And I can understand, like, I see the frustration from Black TikTokers, especially those who create dances, and they're seeing, you know, the white folks copy their dances and be rewarded materially for them. Y'all, that unfortunately, that's the way that cookie crumbles here in the U.S. And I assure you, generations before you experience the exact same thing, and it's absolutely not right. But we have to make sure that we are recounting and correcting the record as the misinformation and as the narrative really gets changed in front of our eyes in real time.
Well said. Delilah, I'm gonna start with you, and this is the final question of the night. JB brought up a good point. Can we talk about Black and brown women being discriminated against for their name?
You know, I think Courtney and Keisha kind of touched on that. Like, was it a blessing, you know, growing up with a more palatable name, or, you know, was it a curse? And just a quick detail about me, language was kept from me. I wasn't able to learn things because of the shadism in my family. So Jasana was talking about, like, the white Latin people saying they're people of color. Well, let's think about when they say they're people of color. Do they say they're people of color when other people of color are getting arrested or hurt? No, they don't claim it then. They claim the identity when it's useful to them. And that is just a very clear reflection of the fact that this nation was built specifically off of theft and exploitation. And so, you know, I don't really think that it's okay for white TikTok girls to be saying that, you know, like, to be benefiting from their theft any longer. And I think that, you know, to an extent, yeah, we should talk about that, and we should shame you, and you should not be so comfortable in that theft, in that privilege that you are. And this is just, it's ongoing work. You know, it's ongoing work. Yeah, I think people keeping their names, you know, like Indigenous people, culturally, we would name ourselves, or it would be a gift, you know, like an elder would name you, and you would change your name depending on what your strengths were, how you fit into the community, things like that, you know. And that practice is so convoluted from tribe to tribe, because everybody has different ways, different cultures, and different backgrounds. And part of being an Indigenous person is just knowing that there's a lot of us that have a lot of different backgrounds, a lot of different, you know, ceremonies and practices and things like that. And that respect is what keeps us learning and educating further, because it's not, oh, I'm better than yours. There's this very good inherent respect. Like, if somebody chose a name for themselves, you honored them, you respected them. That was their identity to claim. But we're all still struggling with generational trauma and the history of this country, that we're not honored on that path of discovery, of decolonizing, of getting closer to who we really are. And it's just going to take, like, we're going to have to cry a lot, because it's hard going through life knowing information has been kept from you. Your identity you're supposed to be erased, and you're still here, and you're still standing. And so part of that, and what I think is beautiful with us right now, is that we're growing together, because we have to. You know, we've gotten this far, we need to keep going further, and claiming your identity. It shouldn't be, you know, what's good for the white people, what do they want to hear, what will they accept. It should be more about yourself and your authenticity.
Well said. One thing I can say, and I'll open this up to the panel, in reference to the names. I remember a kid asked me when I was in high school. I was much calmer back then. Just keep that in mind. Asked me when I was in high school, how come Black people have weird names? And so I just looked at them and said, well, what do you mean by weird? And they were like, well, how come Black people don't, your names aren't normal? And so then I asked them, well, what's normal? And they looked at me and said, oh, well, I didn't mean it like that. I didn't mean anything. I'm just saying, like, it's different. And that taught me back then, when I was a teenager, that a lot of times in this country, what people see as normal is what's white.
Mm-hmm.
And anything outside of that, they see as the other. And they always look down on anything outside of that spectrum. But I'm going to open that up to the panel in reference to the names.
I have a story on that. I mean, I think that we like to think that, I guess we like to think the shame about your name is like really far removed. But this one time when I was in college, so that was, similar. You were in high school, so I was in college, and I was on an email chain with my friends, and we were talking somehow about Freakonomics, before it was a podcast, but when it was just a book. And the Freakonomics book, they were talking about names and all these things. And in this email chain with all my friends from college who are all white, it came down to, having your name spelled wrong and how that could affect your life by having your name spelled wrong initially. And all my white friends were like, that's crazy. Why would your name ever be spelled wrong? Like, this is ridiculous. I said, well, my father's name is spelled Eliza, like a woman. And his mom meant for it to be spelled Elijah, like in the Bible. But guess what? She couldn't write. So his name is what his name is, and that's the way it stands.
But also the white people at the hospital didn't care.
Of course.
They were like, that's your name.
They didn't bother to care either. Exactly. And I think it's like something like that travels with you for your whole life is very, that can have a huge effect on you. And it's something that, is meant for you. Your mom picks a name for you. It's meant for you to be like this thing that's going to lift you up and carry you on. And I felt like they were making a mockery of it. And I feel like in moments like that, I mean, I don't think it caused that much of a rift between this friend group. Luckily, I think they were pretty open and understanding. But I mean, definitely for a couple of days, there were no responses. I wrote back and I said, look, this is what it is. And I kind of explained myself. And I said, honestly, you guys have hurt me to my core. I can't believe that you would even go in on this. Like, this is not cool. And it took them a while to get back to me. But I mean, I think in things like this, we just have to speak out. I mean, I know it sucks and it's just nothing but stress on us, but you have to inform people.
I feel, wow, that's so different than the experience I've had, because my name is Courtney. I mean, my name is Courtney. I have the whitest sounding name, Courtney Banks. That's my name.
We chose her name, honestly. And I think when we sat, so she's 8 years younger than me. And I feel like I remember that when we were sitting down talking about choosing her name, I mean, whiteness came into it. Because when we have a niece named Taylor, a female and male came into it. We said, oh, Taylor is kind of an ambiguous name. So I think the same came into play with your name. Like,
but I can also, I feel like I've seen it my whole life. Like, definitely having a more white leaning name, I guess you would say, I think has in certain ways been favorable, and in other ways been almost like sometimes Black people will think that I chose my own name. Mm-hmm. And that's something that I think is difficult for me. Like, I didn't choose my own name. And that doesn't mean I'm rejecting my Blackness, because something you have to also understand about our family is we're also from a group of people that passed as white. So our mom got in trouble for marrying our dad because he's brown. He's a brown man. They're all Black because of the one drop. Everybody's Black. But people in our mom's family just completely stopped talking to her, ostracized her. They were like, you're ruining our chances at basically passing as white. Right. And our mom was like, I'm a Black person. That's how I had to go on a segregated bus. Just because I'm light skinned, she had to go to segregated schools. She has always been treated Black because that's in the South. That's how it was. And so I think, it's very interesting because with my name, I feel like people kind of think that I reject my blackness, which is the farthest from the truth. And I think in a way it was almost them trying to help me. We don't want to hinder you with what people think about Black people. And you can't say either one of these things are wrong. You know, I can see why Black people would be like, this is fucked up. And I can see why my family would be like, listen, we know how people treat Black people. We were trying to make it a little bit easier for you. And then, and I think Black people are or just people in general, because I know a lot of different immigrants and everybody changes their names in order to assimilate. And it's like, what is the right path? You know, I don't know if there is one right answer for that.
No, I remember, Uzo Aduba said it the best. She was like, look, if you can learn, I forget what the phrase was, but anyway, she said, if you can learn such and such's name, you can learn Uzo Aduba, okay? And you're about to figure it out. But I don't like that we have to like reach this, this needs to happen for everybody, okay? When I go to Starbucks, you need to know my name and you need to ask me how to spell it and all of that. I don't need to be famous and be Uzo Aduba to accomplish that. I mean, I think that's the problem.
Yeah. Keisha ain't hard.
Well said. Krona Ursa said, if possible, could there be another panel of I think you forgot the B, Krona, LBGTQ, or is there a separate panel for that? That's a good question, Krona. I would be interested in having a panel for that. I would not be the best to lead that panel, just being honest with you. But yes, that's definitely a good idea. And Yipper99 said, someone asked my aunt, how come you have a Spanish name and you're Black? She replied, well, you're Black. How come you don't have an African name?
Damn. Hey. Yes.
There you go.
That's I can respond to that. Yes.
Oh man. Before we head out, I want to go around and let everybody tell everyone like where they can find you and anything you have coming up. We'll start with Afeni.
Well, you can just follow me on everything at Red is Ari. Red with 2 D's is Ari. And I will be continuing to organize. Oh, sorry. I'll be continuing to organize with Freedom Fighters DC. And I will be doing bi-weekly spaces with Josana, like talking about Black femme issues on Twitter. So please join us for that. And yeah, thank you.
Cool. Keisha and Courtney.
You guys can find us at Bank Sisters on YouTube, and I'm at Courtney Banks on Twitter. Keisha's at one of these Keishas, and we're like kind of like normies, and we want to, just help put out, things like anything like that. What Afeni is doing, so Afeni, let us know. We will definitely help you shout that out, girl.
Yeah.
Because listen, it takes a lot to organize, and you are not that person. Okay,
right.
Know thyself. I'm a person who's going to say, where can I help you out at? And that's, and
exactly.
everybody's, Afeni, she's that bitch.
Yeah. And leftist things are being very suppressed. If you guys have noticed in your YouTube feeds or whatever, leftist things are being very suppressed. So I think, make sure every time you watch something or see something, follow that person, give it a like, give it a comment, try to push the algorithm, because they're really out here trying to slow us down.
Conservative shit is pushed up. So make sure you're subscribed to Sabby and everybody else here. And thank you so much. Happy birthday, Afeni.
Yeah.
And you all are so amazing. Thank you for sharing.
Love everyone. Opinion. You guys, this is a great panel.
Cool. Josana?
I'm so blessed. Like, I fangirl so much to all of you, but like Afeni is like, I'm going to see Afeni. My hair has to look good. So I have to do that publicly. It's like, wow, I'm so happy. Like, I'm gonna do space with Joseph. And I was like, damn, yes, what she said. We also working on the Women's March for Healthcare on March 8th in DC. Yeah. Delilah kindly is gonna speak. And we want to bring women. We want to bring you on. We're here with you. And yes, just find me on Twitter. I think I have my also Instagram, but like also don't go get together with your community, get to know your neighbors, get to know where you at. Organizing can be as simple as having a conversation. We need to burn it down, but we also need to start from somewhere. The little flame, the little sparkle. And sometimes it's just a conversation. So sometimes when a homeless person asks you for money, don't have the money, look them in the eyes. Give back their humanity, right? Instead of just passing away, and ask how they are doing. Maybe that's better than find me on Twitter. I'm very controversial. Too many people hate me. And I'm so grateful, Sabby, for being in this panel with all these amazing women. And Athene.
Kim?
Yep, you guys can check me out at Burn It Down with Kim Brown. You can subscribe to the channel. That would be awesome. My channel, I try to talk about serious issues that affect our community, from, when police, kill us and shoot us down in the streets, to what's happening to our brothers and sisters who are incarcerated, to the labor movement, to generally just, trying to make sure that Black people understand that we can create and forge a new political path. We do not have to be beholden to Democrats. God forbid, we are not beholden to any kind of Republicans. But I mean, a new way is possible, but we just have to understand that the current situation that we are encountering is toxic, it's destructive. It is meant to keep us down. And the only way that it is able to continue to succeed and work is because a lot of people accept it. So the moment that we stop accepting it, the moment that we are that much closer to our freedoms and to our liberation as Black folks. So please follow the channel, Burn It Down with Kim Brown. I'm on Twitter at Burn It Down KB, and different places like Facebook and Instagram at BIDWKB. We appreciate all the help. Thank you so much, Fire Fam. I see we got some folks up in here. Shout out to Big Teal. What's going on? To Latif. So thank you guys for tuning in. We appreciate it.
Awesome. Delilah?
Well, just I want to say thank you again, because I'm really blessed to be here in this panel with you all, and I'm so happy to learn more about y'all and just be in this struggle with you, because it's not easy out there, and I'm so grateful to be on this path with you, and I feel like we're all friends and we're learning so much together, and it's so beautiful. So I'm very happy for that. Yeah, I'm down here in Texas, so you could find me at Delilah for Texas on Twitter and Facebook and Instagram as well. And I'm happy to support all of y'all in your projects. And if ever you want me to come on and say hi, I'm happy to do that as well. And just, you're all amazing. And so I'm happy to know you. So thank you so much.
Awesome. And shout out to Justin. Thanks so much for the super chat. Most white people don't realize their normal names were appropriated by Semitic cultures, by Europeans, so they could better identify with the myths of the Bible. Thank you so much for that, Justin. What's coming up for me? You guys, I think I might have said this. I don't remember, so I'm gonna say it again. Wednesday, the Funky Academic will be here. We're gonna have a discussion about class and race. Make sure you don't miss that. And don't forget, February 26, 27 is the Women's Summit. Everyone on this panel will also be a part of the Women's Summit as well. I haven't announced the other guests yet. I'll get to it at some point, I promise. But other than that, guys, thanks so much for coming out, and awesome panel. All of you are awesome. You know this already.
Thank you, Sabby.
Love you, Sabby. Take care, y'all.
Thank you, Sabby. Thank you all. Mwah.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye, guys.